Hello, Noelia.
Good morning, Morse. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Yes. How is my background? Is it okay?
Yes, sure, no problem. Excellent.
It's okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello, Noelia. Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second round of the GA breakout session on diversity and inclusion. My name is Noelia. I work in the ISO capacity building unit, and I'm also the ISO gender focal point. I am very happy to welcome you to this session today, which I hope you find interesting, informative, and which we hope it's going to be highly interactive. But before starting, let me share with you some important information about how the session will run. As you may be aware, we are gonna have all the presentations in English. Unfortunately, we don't have interpretation for the breakout sessions. To avoid any background noise, please make sure that your microphones are off during the presentations. You will be able to actively participate and interact with the panelists by submitting your questions through the chat option at the bottom of your screen. We will try to respond as many questions as possible, but please apologize us in advance if we cannot cover all of them. You can also take the floor if you wish to contribute to the discussion. For that, please use the reaction option at the bottom of your screen as well, clicking on the raise hand. And finally, we would like to inform you we will have a couple of polls. Please answer them because that's a way for us to hear from you as well. Finally, please note that this event is being recorded and that the recording will be made available later on through the ISO Week platform. With that, I wish you all a very interesting session, and I would like to hand over the word to my colleague, Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you, Noelia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good very early morning to some of you I know that are joining in from the Americas. I just want to quickly go through some of the D&I initiatives and projects that are ongoing, just to share what ISO is doing and to share what we can and are doing towards the broader ISO strategic goal. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because if you've been attending the GA or the DevCo breakouts or the GA plenary, you've already heard some of these things. So let me just quickly share my screen. There we go. So the fact that we are in a breakout today during the ISO General Assembly, it shows that ISO is dedicated to diversity and inclusion and the importance of this topic to ISO. So it is in the 2030 strategy, and ISO will focus our efforts on building and maintaining an organizational culture that is inclusive and attracts new voices and diverse perspectives to international standards development. So there is a new initiative called the ISO Next Generation Award. It recognizes young professionals from ISO members who are championing sustainability-driven standardization. The winner of the very first ISO Next Generation Award will be announced today during the General Assembly. So please join in live to find out who the lucky winner is going to be. In 2019, following the signing of the UNECE Declaration, ISO Council approved the first ISO Gender Action Plan. The action plan has 5 priorities, mostly aimed at data gathering, assessing the impact of standards, and collecting best practices. Under the new Action Plan for Developing Countries, or APDC4, the focus on people can be seen through the outcomes and the indicators of the action plan. So ISO capacity building interventions are aimed at supporting ISO members and their stakeholders, which includes academic and research institutions. ISO will collaborate with academia to strengthen our members and standardization through academia. Gender equality and women's empowerment are also essential for economic growth and social development. Through the APDC4, members will be supported to mainstream gender considerations within new and existing standards and ensure balanced participation in the standards development process. Following the CSESP, or the Council Standing Committee on Strategy and Policy, we love acronyms at ISO, a project team was created to develop a program for young professionals. And in order to develop this sort of program very successfully, we needed to better understand how youth perceive standardization, the barriers to their participation, and the need to clearly communicate the benefits of standards to youth and young professionals. But it's not all about us here at ISO. We also want to know about activities that your NSB or your organization is doing to meet the strategic goal of all voices heard. So you should see a poll popping up on your screen. Go ahead and answer. Let us know what you have going on at your organizational level. Maybe it's part of your strategy. Maybe you have your own gender action plan. Maybe you've signed up to the UN ECE declaration. Are you working with academia or universities? Maybe you don't have anything going on at this moment, but that doesn't mean that you still can't contribute. So I'll leave it open for a few more seconds. All right, a couple more seconds. Let's get some numbers in there. All right, let's go ahead and end that poll and see what the results are. Great, so it looks like almost half of you actually have D&I initiatives in your NSB strategy, which is really great to hear. A lot of you are also engaging academia and research institutions. That's also good. Really, it looks like most of you have something going on, which is really great to hear. And we hope to hear your experiences and your projects and what it is that you're doing during the group work later on. So, next slide. There we go. So I also just want to quickly talk about some of the concrete work that the ISO of the Gender Action Plan. And I'm also going to talk about two projects that are underway and are pertinent actually to today's discussion, which are the ISO IEC JSAG on gender responsive standards and a survey that was conducted by ISO on our technical experts. So the ISO IEC Joint Strategic Advisory Group, or the JSAG, has set out 5 deliverables in their mandate, but what we're going to do right now is focus on deliverable number 3, which is to develop recommendations for technical committees on how to incorporate gender, diversity, and inclusion in the standards development process. So in order for the JSAG to best meet their deliverable, they reached out to ISO and IEC technical committees through a survey. And that survey asked committees if they consider gender in their process and why, or if they don't, why not? And the survey showed that only 25% of technical committees consider gender in the standards development process. And at first, I understand that may seem a bit low, but what we find promising and hopeful is that 38%, in addition to that, also asked and want guidance on how to develop standards, gender responsive standards. So the JSAG and their working groups are working hard to develop those guidelines for technical committees. Another survey that's been done under the Gender Action Plan is to collect data on gender and age for both our CEO members as well as the ISO technical experts. And what's really important is that being able to see this information and see where the gaps are in terms of balances will help ISO to establish a baseline, and then we can have measurable and reliable results. So the first set of data that we looked at for technical experts was the gender representation. And you'll see here the results of the survey, and it showed that men held the majority of CEO positions within ISO members, as well as the majority in technical committees. We then broke down that data into their role within the technical committee itself. So there's a slight improvement when looking at women as committee managers, but for the other roles, men still held the majority. And then we also looked at the data of the age brackets of our technical experts. So you'll see here that the surveys showed that 45% of our experts are above the age of 55 years old, with the majority of our experts being between 45 and 64 years old. And while this data may seem a bit discouraging when you look at in terms of youth representation, ISO is optimistic that this will improve in the future due to the strategic importance of all voices heard, as well as all of the activities and initiatives and projects that we have going on at the ISO level, as well as the national level through our members. So with that, I'm going to close this presentation and hand over to my colleague, Vanessa.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Hi, my name's Vanessa and I'm the Head of Communications and Marketing at ISO. And I have the pleasure of introducing your moderator for today, Bjorn Boast, who is a fellow Head of Communications and Marketing at our ISO member organisation, the South African Bureau of Standards. Bjorn brings many years of experience in strategic brand development and is passionate about marketing and communicating standards to make national and international impact. We actually asked Bjorn to join us today and share with us a bit about how he has seen massive value in driving gender awareness in standards in developing countries, and how he has been working closely with the Standards Division, developing marketing initiatives for gender equality and equity that is helping to position SABS as a leading partner in South Africa's manufacturer industry. So without further ado, Bjorn, we are now in your capable hands.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and welcome to all our participants. I see we've got a nice bunch of people together, and thank you to ISO again for this opportunity to moderate this very important breakaway. I think diversity and inclusion is what is on the agenda everywhere in the world, and it's actually the future of standards. So with that said, I wanted to just put down a little bit of statistics showcasing what South Africa is about, and I've got a small setup here. So just to give you some introduction on SABS, we are a founding member since 1945, and we're also a member of several national standard bodies. We've demonstrated a commitment to sustainable development goals, gender equality, by signing the UNEC Declaration on Gender Responsive Standards and Standards Development, what was an important step for us going forward. The next slide. Here you can see a little bit of statistics from South Africa, and I'm setting that as a tone, and it will come later on in the video that you will see. We got about 60 million people, and more than half of those are women. However, our unemployment, that is very high in South Africa, you can see is at 34%, but if you look at the amount of percentage in there, almost 70% of that is women. Then we've got a female leadership in state-owned enterprises at the moment, and that's a big drive from government to drive female leaderships in our government. And you see that's at 40%, what is very high. Then we've got female directors, that is the highest in the BRICS environment at 21%. So that shows that we are really pushing it quite hard from our leadership perspective. You can go to the next slide, please. Then from the youth statistics, 50% of our population is younger than 35 years old. So that we've got a very young generation. This is actually a continent percentage as well. So Africa as a total. Our youth and employment is very, very high. It's at 55%. But on the other side, we're slowly edging into the ISO experts, and they are the younger one. We're around the same level as ISO, about 7%. So there's definitely place for growth. And what we do at the moment, we work very close with universities on graduation programs and all that things that we can create that awareness. just to give you a little bit of more information that will come from our lead administrator. We put her on a video, so that video will be shared with you, and she will share what we are doing and what SAB's initiatives are doing regarding our government and our place in our in the government. Sorry, here we go.
We don't have the sound at the minute.
No sound.
Just
There's no sound at the moment. My apologies, just a little technical itch. We're getting that right.
Inclusive as possible in it. Good day, my name is Jodie Scotts and I'm the lead administrator at the South African Bureau of Standards in South Africa, and I'm passionate about gender equality. If you look at the economic impact of diversity within the workplace, it really makes economic sense and business sense for the South African Bureau of Standards to be as inclusive as possible in its recruitment and workplace practices. So what we've done at the South African Bureau of Standards is we've looked at the gender dynamics of future jobs and have identified a number of key new areas of growth for the organization. So looking at areas like food and agribusiness. We've also implemented a leadership development program, and we launched it in August 2021, Women in Leadership, and looking at how we could upskill women in technical and scientific careers. Another key area that we've done is balancing care and careers and implementing a hybrid working model, understanding that the pandemic has had a massive impact on lives and livelihoods. And so looking at our workplace practices, the policies and procedures has also been another important element of ensuring inclusivity within the Bureau of Standards. Looking at the leadership development program that we've undertaken within the Bureau of Standards, it has had a massive impact in terms of how people show up, looking at multidisciplinary collaborative platforms of individuals working in cross-functional teams and coming up with really innovative solutions to assisting business to grow and to develop further. Critical learnings for us at SABS have been creating inclusive workplace practices. Another key learning has been communicate. Communicate what you're wanting to achieve as often and as frequently as you can in different and diverse platforms.
Thank you for that. So that gives you a good idea of what's happening in South Africa and what SABS is actually initiating from that perspective. And saying that, what we are going to do now is we're going to introduce our panels, and they are going to be introduced through videos. And our first video is from Madagascar, and that is Sitraka. She's the head of Standards B&M, and she's also coordinator of Women, Youth and Standardization Unit. Sitraka, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Sitraka Mbintu, and I'm the coordinator of the cell dedicated to women and young entrepreneurs in Madagascar. So we have a project initiated by the RNF and the EF, and for this we have implemented a cell dedicated to recruit women and young entrepreneurs. And this cell is a service desk for inform, for train, and for support them to use the standards. And it is also a community of practice to promote the standardization. And today we have this cell have a microsite and a Facebook page, which run regularly and which is supplied with interesting content and news related to the standardization work.
Okay,
and
thank you.
We find that this is a efficient method to approach them.
Thank you very much. We are going to see your video and it's going to give us even more input. Thank you very much for your introduction.
Thank you. C'est un sujet important pour les organisations d'aujourd'hui, car on souligne actuellement un fort développement de l'entrepreneuriat chez les femmes et les jeunes. Il est donc essentiel de les sensibiliser et de les appuyer sur l'application des normes qui constituent des outils efficaces de promotion de leurs activités et de croissance économique. Aussi, le domaine de la normalisation nécessite d'être au maximum à proximité de tous. Le projet a débuté par la mise en place de la cellule au niveau du BNM, qui est l'organisme malgache de normalisation. Nous avons entamé une approche intégrée sollicitant la collaboration de partenaires nationaux en lien direct ou indirect à l'atteinte des objectifs du projet. Il y a eu ensuite plusieurs ateliers de lancement officiel de la cellule et le recrutement des cibles a été effectué à travers plusieurs des centres au niveau des régions où il y a de fortes activités de femmes entrepreneurs. Des cafés de normalisation ont été aussi organisés pour sensibiliser et former les jeunes universitaires qui sont les entrepreneurs de demain. Un microsite et une page Facebook de la cellule ont aussi été créés et animés régulièrement, alimentés en contenu sur les actualités liées aux travaux de normalisation nationaux et internationaux. Comme impact, cette initiative a permis de disposer d'une plateforme d'échange dynamique et un guichet de service pour tout besoin dans le domaine de la normalisation, d'un réel outil de promotion des normes au niveau national, à la fois un canal de communication, d'information, de formation, de vulgarisation et même de marketing. Aussi, la capacité de notre ONM pour l'animation d'une plateforme électronique et pour la culture qualité a été renforcée et plus de participation de parties prenantes au processus de développement de normes a été constatée et surtout plus de visibilité de notre ONM. Il faut savoir que tout le monde mérite de jouir des grands avantages de la normalisation. Face aux diverses catégories d'utilisateurs, l'important est de disposer des meilleures méthodes pour les approcher. Ces méthodes diffèrent pour les femmes et pour les jeunes, ainsi on pourrait s'assurer de tous les intégrer. Ce projet d'instauration d'une cellule à Madagascar est actuellement présent dans 6 pays, mais il est facilement exportable dans d'autres pays avec l'accompagnement du RNF et de l'OIF.
Thank you very much. That's a nice intro, and I think it gave us a lot of information as well at the same time. Our next introduction would be to Marie-Claude. Marie-Claude, can you please introduce yourself?
Just a few words to say. I'm the General Secretary of the RNF. So we are in charge of this, the Women in Youth Cellule project. So just a few words to say that RNF Women Economic Empowerment with Standard is one of our main goals. So as Citraka just said, the RNF Women, Youth and Cellule project is designed to do so. And it's a really powerful communication channel to reach the young and the women entrepreneur to explain them how to create value in their businesses with the standards. And up to now, around our 6 countries, we have up to 52,000 members.
Thank you very much.
No, can we stop the video, please?
Yes, the video has just jumped us a little bit. Sorry about that. The next panelist that we would like to introduce is Antoine. Antoine, can you please introduce yourself to the participants next?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Antoine. I work as a project manager in standardization at AFNOR, and I'm the secretary of the CNTC 164 water supplies, and also 2 working group at ISO level.
Thank you very much. Here's your video. Please start video.
When you work in standardization, you understand very quickly that a good standard is a standard written with different views. Views come from Japan, France, or United States. And I think it's the same thing, the same reasoning with the age and the gender. If you want to write a good standard, you need a mix between the nationalities, but also between experiences, youth, and gender. This subject is addressed from the very beginning, from the requirement. We are lucky to have an organization that gives to young people a chance to have responsibility very early. Being secretary of a technical committee or a working group means have responsibilities. At the same time, we have an integration process. We can talk with our colleagues, we can create a band, have a mentor, and learn some tips or methods to be comfortable with this new job. Because very often this job is our first job, and it's important to us to be comfortable in this new life, and we can count on this process integration. The impacts are very simple because I'm still here and I'm not the only one. So I think the approach is very good. This is a job that I like, and I've been trained by my organization step by step. I met my colleague very quickly. I learned what I need to learn, but in fact I'm still learning every day, of course, and I can also bring my ideas and develop new things, so I think it's a good balance. I have learned many things, of course, how to write a standard, how to respect the process of developing standards, and how to communicate with experts from all over the world. But if I have to share only one key learning, I would say how to manage my time and my agenda, not to be too nervous, and set priorities, of course.
Thank you. Well, that's again a nice introduction, and again a good feel of youth and development, youth insights, standards development. Our next panelist is Sonia George. Sonia George, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. It's middle of the night for me, so if I'm a little slow, please bear here with me. But I am Sonia George. I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance for Affordable Internet, and I lead up digital inclusion programming at the Web Foundation, where I make sure that the work of connecting the unconnected in the world is an effort that is not just about bringing internet to everyone, but bringing internet with intention, and to make sure that everyone, including women, youth, girls, rural populations, marginalized populations, are included. And I look forward to sharing more with you later today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sonia George, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance for Affordable Internet, a global coalition working to advocate for policy reform that supports affordable and meaningful connectivity for everyone. Half of the world's population is completely offline, and even those who are online have poor connectivity. And the majority of those offline in the world are women and girls in low and middle income countries. So we do these by supporting and advocating for gender responsive policymaking processes and frameworks. What does that mean? It means that as you design and start creating a policy, you need to define the problem from a perspective that is fully informed by the realities and the dimensions that every citizen in a particular country is faced with. And that means that we need to understand the different experiences of men and women, the different experiences of women in rural areas, the different experiences of women and girls that are from different backgrounds, from different economic and social backgrounds in the country, and the policy that needs to tackle and really target how to address those barriers, to remove them, and to make sure that the policy supports not only programs and activities that will remove them, but that will support that kind of engagement with technology. The impact of doing good gender responsive policy is quite rewarding. First, the process itself increases awareness of policymakers and all of those involved in the process about the problem, and you create a vested interest in solving that problem. But most importantly, the impact is then there are resources, there are programs that are defined and developed to target the problem at hand. And it's wonderful to see. We've worked in Nigeria, in Benin, we're working in Bangladesh now, in countries where you see the real fruits of true gender responsiveness. Successful policy is always the result of an inclusive process. And there's no other way of saying, when I mean inclusive, I really mean it. All voices need to be represented. And if you're thinking about gender responsive policy, be sure to have your gender advocates, your gender experts on the table, and don't pretend that others are the experts. They are not.
Thank you, Sonia. And again, a nice introduction. Coming to the close of those videos, I think it's very important that we took note of them. We're going to use those videos going forward in our workshop. But for now, I just want to ask some questions to those panelists about their videos. And I think one of the first questions I'm going to ask is Sitraka. Sitraka, thank you for sharing all that experience that you already showed in the video. So in a short description, can you tell us a bit more about the activities that you carried out in Madagascar and how you attracted the younger generation and also certain stakeholders?
Yes, thank you. Firstly, I'm sorry, I had a little connection problem. Yes, we have created the cell, which is dedicated to recruit women and young entrepreneurs. And our aim is to listen to their needs and to help them to understand and to initiate the application of the standardization in their activities. And for young especially, we have organized many training sessions for students in university. And because we know that they are the entrepreneur for tomorrow, and that we have learned them what is the standardization and what is their advantage if they found their future activities in this topic, in this area. And the great advantage is also to have to use the social network, because we have this Facebook page which run regularly, and with what we can communicate with them, and we can guide them more and more every day. And it's a very big experience and a great opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for that insight. Gives us a little bit more information as well, and I think the participants can absorb this. Going forward, Marie-Claude, we've heard a lot about Madagascar's experience with women and youth, and the project that has been developed in support with the RNF. So far, this initiative has been implemented for French-speaking countries. Do you think this initiative could be exported or used throughout the world for other members?
Yes, of course, the answer is yes. And Sitraka said that in her video. So if we did that for 6 countries, we can do it for every country if they want to try to have a cellule. At the RNF, we are a catalyst of resources. So our core business is to equip our members, so the French speaking NSBs, to realize their mission. So in the RNF Women and Youth project, it's a service that we offer to our member. So how it works in clear, it's we offer our NSBs the toolkit and the coaching to operate their cellule, like Sitraka said, and to operate their cellule and to better reach the women and the young entrepreneur, to tell them why it is important to be aware of the standards and to use it in their business plan. So doing so, the entire project is all documented. So it's sure that we can export it now. So let's just do it.
Thank you very much. And I think participants also, again, listen to this, and this is an opportunity maybe to contact RNF and see how you can collaborate together and get this thing going in the world and make it not from 6 countries, make this 60 countries and more.
Yes.
Because that's actually the...
Yes,
sorry.
oh, sorry. I'll write you my email address in the chat. So
good, perfect. So people
feel free
can
to contact me.
Yes, thank you very much. Antoine, again, knowing that you come from your personal experience getting into standards, what do you think ISO and standardization can do for the young interested people that want to come into standard? What must they do a little bit more to attract those people, the younger generation?
I don't have a miracle solution for getting people, young people, interested in standardization, but I think we need to reach out more to young people and not wait for them to come to us. I think I'm not the only one, but I discovered standardization by chance. And to reach out young people, I think you have 2 ways. Teach what standardization is in university, for example, or college, and promote flagship standards that speak to young people, like phone charger, USB-C, or artificial intelligence, for example. And I think you also can promote the impact that a standard can have, because I think it's very important when you are young to see the concrete impact that something you have worked on can have.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, again, I think it's showing that we need to show diversity inside the standards development to attract the right people from that side. Sonia, we're coming to your side at the moment. I would like to know, based on your experience, what are the main challenges that you've seen for the buy-in from decision makers, especially in addressing the gender equality? How can you give us some feedback on that, please?
Thank you for that question, Bjorn. Well, there's a couple of things, and I think what you heard from all the other panelists, in a way, are reference to some of those challenges. But let me start by saying, how do I see the problem? First of all, decision makers are often very resistant to change. Not everyone, but in general, people are resistant to change. It's hard, right? You have to adjust, you have to change your methods, you have to change your thinking. So one of the ways in which we often, are, not only empowered, but equipped to do that right is by having the right evidence, the right data, the right illustrations and experiences that can prove that decision makers need to pay attention to the problem, right? You basically make clear what the problem is that you have in front of you and argue with good data and evidence that actually change needs to happen. And I think this is important also in the standards world. My world is also very affected by standards. And I can tell you that one of the things about it is that often it's very clear to us, to those of us who are implementing and doing work and trying to bring different kinds of opportunities to people, that a lot of things that were or that are being used, including standards, they were not really thought of from the perspective of those who are impacted. They are not very much being thought of from the perspective of those who have to use it, who have to engage with it on a daily basis. So really illustrating why that is and unpacking those problems, it's really important. But then I wanted to say a couple of things also linking to some of the data that the colleagues from ISO shared earlier. There are issues of representation, which is about making sure representation and inclusion, bringing different voices to the table, making sure that all those voices are heard and that their concerns are not only credible, but they are paid attention to. So for example, and I hope the person who put that comment doesn't take it personally, but I was going to say, when people argue about well, youth doesn't have as much experience. And so those that are more experienced need to be at the table and calling the shots. Well, actually, those who are very experienced have also a very limited experience. And youth brings a perspective that future-proofs any kind of possibility. And I think that's true for women that are young and men that are young. And in inclusion from that perspective, it's much more a rich experience. And so I think it's important that representation is thought of as a way to not only bringing voices, but also securing a future that is represented by those voices. Because frankly, no matter how experienced I am, I can tell you for sure that my children, who are going to be the future of the world, have a very different perspective, and perhaps a perspective that we cannot even understand yet, but that we need to make an effort in understanding. The second point is around design. And some of you already heard me mention these earlier, I should say today, yesterday, when we had the first session of these in your event. And it's about how those perspectives actually influence the way everything is designed in our world, the way innovation, solutions, technical and otherwise, are conceived. And the truth is, if those innovation solutions, including what then is permeated through standards, are informed by limited experiences that do not represent the views, the realities and contexts of those that those solutions need to impact, then we are really falling short as to how we have to do our work. And I think this is very important from a gender perspective, because the truth is, and I always tell people when I speak about it, and when I work with policymakers around the world, and I'm supporting them in understanding how to integrate these perspectives in their thinking, no technology is ever neutral. That is a misconception, okay? Because I can tell you that just within these, the environment of our own panel today, the way you, Bjorn, or Marie-Claude, or Antoine, or Citraka, relates to any piece of anything that is affected by standards, being your cell phone, the computers in front of us, what have you. We all relate to those technologies differently, because we are women, because we are men, because we are young, we are older, because you speak French, I speak English, I speak Portuguese, I speak Spanish, someone speaks, Slavic, what have you. All of those experiences determine and affect the way we interact with solutions. So inclusion is critical, but from a gender perspective, I want to say again, it's even more critical, because by far, women are the most marginalized. And if we want to make a dent on changing the current picture of inequality and exclusion in the world, you absolutely need to tackle the gender divides first. And I can assure you that all these other dimensions will also be paid attention to.
Good. Thank you very much, Sonia. As you see, Sonia has given us a lot of information to think about. And I think this is definitely the moment that we can think and put your mind to the panelists and maybe ask them some questions. We've got the chat section where we would like you to engage with us and give us some questions that are really thoughtful and that push us also from a panelist side to give those answers that you're looking for. There's a lot of stuff that is happening at the moment. So if someone has got any questions that they have to specific, just put it in the chat and we'll take it further from there. And maybe to engage quickly on something that, because I get more and more questions, the more I hear this, and we've had several sessions like this before, and some of the people here, the panelists, have been here more than 12 hours. So I think it's quite important to see. So what are the solutions going forward? Because we've heard and seen in the videos that a lot of people say the connection to those people, how do you get to them? How do you bring the message to them? If they're in rural areas, how do you make sure that the standard gets to that? And I would like to ask to some of the panelists as well, what are the solutions if we go beyond that? How do we get into those markets? If we're talking about 80% of the people not being connected, how do we connect with them? And those are the important parts. So I think those are questions that we need to ask them, and I hope that you guys participate. As participation go for it and ask the question. Thank you. So maybe that's a question that I can ask Marie-Claude first, and then maybe Antoine and Sonia. Just a very short, how can we connect with the masses of 80% that is not connected? Marie-Claude,
yeah,
maybe an idea?
Yeah, it's a good question. For ourselves, we have the both type of communication. We use internet, of course, Facebook and everything, but Citraka has a lot of experience in that. She organized a lot of meeting in person. So she really go to the entrepreneur, and she meet them in their business places, and she organized in-person meetings.
Yeah, thank you. Citraka, do you want to highlight very quickly how that worked for you guys? How did you be able to go and because it takes time, it takes effort to go out into rural areas or into those manufacturing environments to go and talk about standardization and to convert to people to think about standards more. What was your initiatives, just to give the people an idea from not from rural, but distance especially, and connectivity?
In fact, we can in developing countries, we can say that women have less knowledges than men. So at first we have to learn them, and secondly we must to be in their context. So we have to understand their social situation, and learn them that the big problem is not only the budget, because women don't have enough budget to use in their activities than men. So we must persuade them that there is another point which can be a great advantage for them. So we must understand their needs, their expectation, and we work with that. We guide them in this way.
Yeah, and thank you very much. Sorry, Marie, I see your hand.
If I can just add, I think that, to choose a good channel is a really a goal. So it's not always internet, as she said. And Citraka always keeping saying to me to adapt the message. We have to adapt the message to the person who we are talking to, so, because standards is a bit technical at first, and it's essential to have clear message.
Yes. I'm seeing some question coming through from Pauline. Has anyone worked on a mechanism to secure content of standards to be gender responsive? And Sonia, is there any answer to that question?
Well, I would say that the question should be, was the problem that the standard was trying to address and the solution that standard is, addressing, was it created from a gender perspective? Because if it wasn't, it's not the content to express or how to then use it that is going to solve the problem. Okay, so we have to start from the very beginning. It's about, is the technology, whatever you were thinking, is that really addressing the problem? So I think we have to start the question from there, so much earlier than after the fact. After the fact, yes, communicating, using the right languages, but all of that is important. But you have to understand the context. Again, I think what Citraka and Marie-Claude were saying, that I think it's really important and relates to another question or another comment that someone put on the chat, is that diversity of communities are clear, and you do need to include those communities, just as Citraka and Marie-Claude are doing in their project. Bringing those voices to whatever activity you have is critical. And even if it takes time, you have to do it. Never shortchange that project, as I always like to say. And what I would say here too is that, for example, the way we work in our alliance, around, of course, issues of internet policy and regulation, is that we actually create multi-stakeholder coalitions that have representation of all the multiple voices in a particular environment. And those voices means that ministers, CEOs, policymakers have to learn the perspective of the most grassroots organizations. Sometimes people feel that they are at a different level or in a different context. And no, if you really care to have your solutions, your language, your content address the realities of the people that you're trying to have an impact on, you have to hear their voices, you have to hear their context, you have to understand their realities, their challenges, and then create those opportunities. It's our responsibility of those that are privileged and have the ability to make decisions to then create a condition where the opportunities are there. Just as, for example, I think the example of Citraca and Marie-Claude is very good in that, is you facilitate the process so that the opportunity is there. So I would say, Pauline, yes, there are ways of making sure that the content is gender responsive, but before you get there, make sure that the standard and the solution actually was thought of from that perspective, because otherwise you're trying to solve a situation where from the outset, it's not necessarily, what you really should be solving. I hope I'm making myself clear.
Yes, no, very much so. Thank you very much for that feedback. And I think, I see we've got a lot of people from all over the world, and I want to see some more questions from India. We've got people from Korea, Russia. We got really a big diversity of group of people. And again, diversity is here, so we need to talk to each other about it. So I'm really waiting for some more questions to come through. So just maybe to give some more initiative and questions that I can maybe ask Antoine. So from Antoine, from a youth process, so you've spoken already about it. There's not really a quick answer to how to get youth involved into standards. However, there's of course ways of making youth more interested in standards and therefore then growing that interest in that. Is there some, what would you say, how would you guide the youth in getting access to those international portfolios? So is there technical platforms available for the youth to go and get that interest, for instance, in artificial intelligence? I know there's platforms where you can read on ISO on those things, but what more is being done, for instance, in technology standards, where there's portals where the youth can maybe get some more information? I'm just thinking that's where the youth would want to go and read and maybe start discussions about future standards that are not available yet or that have to be redeveloped.
Well, it's not easy question. Because, of course, as Marie-Claude said, we have internet to share some information. But for me, we need, before maybe to share information on internet, I think we can start a work with the school. It's very important in some countries. You teach public law, for example, and I think teach standardization could be a good idea, just to show the interest of standardization, the process, how we connect people between them. I think it's a first step. After that, to connect people and new people, of course, you have internet and social media to share something, but maybe organize some meetings. I think Citraca said that before too. And we need to really reach out the young people to interest standardization. So I think the first step is cool. And after we can think about the new technologies, but the first step for me is the school.
Good, thank you very much. And we'll see that later on what we saw yesterday. Education is a big thing. We're getting to the end of the question and answer. I see that I've already passed the 10-minute deadline and we need to go forward. Some of the questions asked, we will get afterwards and we'll put on the problem canvas You will see where we will discuss. So please, the people that have asked those questions, keep them in mind for later. We will highlight them at a later stage. But there's definitely some good questions being asked at the moment. But we have to move on to group work. And I think the first thing that we are going to do is do another poll. And please, everybody participate in this one. It's quite important. Which do you think are more challenging? Go for, what are those most challenging ones, you know? I see we've got a good participation in this poll, and I'm very happy that we see that both gender and youth is one of the biggest challenges. So yeah, thank you for that. We're closing the poll now. So we had an almost 80% participation. So thank you very much for that. So you can see both gender and youth is high on the agenda. And yeah, that's why we're here. So it makes all sense. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm just switching it up. Good. So now we're going to the problem statements of our let's call it the whiteboard, what we call it at the moment. We got a nice technical system going on that the team is going to help us. They're going to go and live draw on a board some of the questions that we have, some of the problems. And remember, we said in the questions there were some problems. People didn't know how did you do this, how did you do that. That's where we need to come to. So very important. I hope the ladies from ISO can share that screen now, and then I can explain a little bit how it works. So one of the main thing is we need to create a value proposition. And sorry, my screen is doing it. Just have to move something. My apologies for that. So on our problem statements, we're going to put it on a canvas, and we're going to work through a panel of questions of that, and then it will give us some stuff to work with. If you can just move to the canvas itself, I would prefer that. Then I can explain exactly how we can work it. Yes, go there. So as you see, this is our problem statement canvas. So we're going to ask you, what are your problems that you have currently, like the ones in the questions? What are those pertinent problems that you have? Describe what those are for you. Then you need to kind of say, what is your organization doing at the moment, right now? And what is very important? This is your third level. What is very important for that? Why is it important that those problems are solved? And when we are starting to solve those problems, what is the opportunities that arise from that? And then at the end, we've got, what are the actionable steps? What do we do? How do we do it? And again, I saw a lot of questions in the question and answer. So that's very, very important. So the people that have got some of the solutions, also put them in our chat, then we can share them. But let's start with the problem. Everybody has got them. So explain your problem and state why they matter. It's very important that they matter, of course. And what is the impact of your problem? Because your problem is there, and then how can it impact standards development or manufacturing or growth of standard? Remember, this is the future of standards, the generation going forward. And then we need to propose some solutions. So our next step is, how can we work on this setup of this canvas? And we would like to give you 5 minutes to just go into this document, think about it, put in the chat your problems, start with your problems, then we will move on to the next one. What do you do and how does it work for your organization today, and why is it important, and all those things that we step one by one. So I would like to give you 5 minutes to think about it, go into this problem statement canvas, read through it, and we can maybe share what was done yesterday. But I also want enticement from guys. What is really your problem? What are we going to do? This is important because we need to make sure that we can achieve, and that everything is aligned with manufacturing, with the government, and everything together. So please do so as we go forward, and this will help your organization going forward. because they need to define what the problems are. And they can only do it by seeing those problems in front of them and helping them come to the solution. So there we go. We're already starting, so people are starting. So maybe we can start with opening up.
Yes, thank you so much. We are going to give, as you said, 5 minutes for people to think a little bit about the canvas that we are presenting, because the idea is that this can serve you as a tool to develop your value proposition. Every time, if you want to initiate any initiative in your organization to support or to increase diversity and inclusion, this problem statement canvas can help you tackle that by thinking what is the problem, as Björn said, what are you doing, and what can you do better, why is important, what is the opportunity. With that, you will develop your value proposition to get the buy-in from decision makers, but also from any other person involved. So 5 minutes for you to think about the questions that we have on screen, and then afterwards we want to hear back from you, and I think we can also cover some of the questions, as Björn said, that are on the chat. 5 minutes.
So it looks like our 5 minutes has passed, but I saw some beautiful stuff there. There's definitely work for us to put on the board. There's a lot of chats happening, and I really thank you for the participation. It's very nice to see that. So we've seen. I'm just going to try to open the chats on my side as well. So I'm just moving to another screen. Yo, there's quite a lot, but it's good good stuff here. So what we're seeing is. So there's one of the main problems that we see is a lack of awareness and disregarding of the youth. They don't have experience, so they shouldn't be in a standard or a standards environment. That's what is being seen. So we see a lot of those issues here, and there's a lot of stuff that I see from India and from I'm just going through some of this from Jordania. Yeah, so. Okay, and also one of the main thing I think is also there's no specific programs being developed for the youth to be participating in that standards environment. So that's one thing, maybe a problem that we also can do there. But yeah, of course. So we developing of workshops, developing of programs, campaigns towards the youth. Those are definitely steps that need to be taken up and driven by the standards bodies. Of course, those are the ones that need to implement those. You need to attract the youth one way or the other, and you can only do that when you organize everything around it. So. It's jumping around here. My apologies for that. Yeah, the importance of standards. So we must make sure that the communication to the youth, especially, but also the diverse market and the diversity of the people as well. We need to make sure that they understand the importance of standards, and that needs to be communicated very clearly. Again, I think I said it right in the beginning. Is we know how to communicate out the world, but we don't communicate about standards development. We are more communicating the standards and the product, the end product, but not the making of. And I think that is a very important part that needs to be pushed a little bit harder worldwide. That everyone has to play a part in that. So I'm just looking here. Someone has said that there's free workshops that they are doing for the next generation. That is, of course, that's what we need. And it's, especially coming out of this workshop, I think it can't stop here. It needs to go on and on and on. This is a monthly thing, a weekly thing that needs to happen. So those groups need to work together. And for me, a GA happens once a year, but the next generation needs to take this on, especially in the virtual environment, to talk to each other on an ongoing basis, to grow that potential and to actually create stickiness to it, so people get attracted to it and come and grow this group. So that's important. So what we're seeing is that we sensitizing of the regulators, seminars for students. That's what's happening at the moment. What is important. I must say, from South Africa's perspective, we engaging with universities, making sure that there's awareness for students, but even way younger than that, making them understand about standards and what the benefits of standards are. Why is this important? We can see, yeah, a low uptake of standards, of course, because the moment you lose a target market, you're going to lose the opportunity of people uptaking their standard, because if they don't understand the standard, why would I look at starting a standard for my manufacturing? Misuse of power can be done, because remember, if there's no guidance of standards, then people are just going to do whatever they want. And that's very, very important, especially for developing market, that it's done in those steps. How can we create more opportunities? We can see here the opportunities will be increased participation, increased youth engagement, what we really want, because remember, we're talking about the future of standards and the future of standard development here. And we need to raise those awareness. There we go, attracting people from different backgrounds. That is very important. So diversity, inclusion of everyone. And we already addressed one of the issues would be there. How do you connect with those groups? Because it's not always easy worldwide. If 80% of the people are not even connected, then you're going to have a big problem. So some of the very important steps that are being taken here, I see there's still writing going on the board. So please, I see we've got nice participation here. So I'm reading through them just to see if I can add something as well. There's a lot of people saying we've got mentoring programs. Sonia, you're highlighting the STEM programs and STEM fields, sorry. Maybe, yeah, okay, I don't know if we can explain that a little bit, but I think you need to, for some people that needs to be explained.
I can tell you.
There we go, sorry.
Science, technology, engineering. The STEAM is the art, the design idea, integrating design and math. So it's all of the, all of the traditionally, sadly, male, fields, and how to not only attract women and girls to those fields, but also support and sustain their participation and their ability to become professionals in those fields, which is the issue about representation that is very important. But as you know, organizations don't always nurture and support female, either technologists, engineers, what have you, in those fields, because sadly the world of industry is not exactly very welcoming of women and their needs in their context. And so that's part of why representation is also important, but it's also important that organizations change the way they do business and support their employees, etc. I wanted to, if you don't mind, Bjorn, while you're doing that, I just wanted to make a point here. Someone from Bhutan Tech was mentioning a couple of things that I replied, and I wanted to say that the reason why I didn't put a particular link to a guide or to a gender responsive policy making document or something is because they also have to be very specific to the sector, to the industry, or sometimes even to the kind of organization. Is it a private large organization? Is it a small? Is it an NGO? Is it a government agency? And so it's important. It's not a prescribed approach that is one size fits all, right? And in fact, my organization, we run extensive workshop, and we don't like calling them capacity building, but we call them knowledge sharing and experience sharing workshops and opportunities where we support policymakers, private sector, and civil society organizations to integrate gender approaches and gender inclusiveness in their processes. So, and each of these are actually designed for the different audiences. So I'm not sure quite what is your context, but I would say ISO should be able to support its members with some ideas on these different approaches depending on where you're coming from, right?
Agreed. Yeah, no, definitely agreed. Yeah, thank you, Sonia. That gives us a lot of info, and I think it's very important fields that you've put out there, so that information must be really absorbed. I also see one that is really, it's one of the ones that SABS has also been struggling for, and then that's actually transfer of skills. So we've seen that the majority is an plus 50 field, but the transfer to the younger generation doesn't always happen. I saw that there. So it's very important that the transfer of skills is happening from the beginning on and not when it's too late, what happens often. So that is very good. And then again, yeah, we see the universities. I don't know if there's any other ones that we want to add, but we've got quite a lot. It doesn't even fit on my page anymore. So thank you for that. It gives us a nice, what we see, stakeholder buy-in eventually. That's what we're going to get going forward. Yeah, thank you, Sonia. That explains it very well. And I think it's very important for the younger generation and for everyone, to be honest, to look at that and see how can we make sure that that gets developed and pushed. Is there anything else that I'm missing here? Vanessa or Rachel, can you see if I'm missing something? Because there's a lot going on here. Okay.
So Vanessa's working hard trying to capture all of these ideas on the whiteboard. If anyone would like to quickly take the floor and share a few words maybe about what you are doing or right now or in the future towards either gender or youth or maybe another diversity and inclusion topic, feel free to take the floor. We got a couple more minutes of the whiteboard before we move on.
Yeah.
And this, in case you didn't see it, this document is in the chat. So if you'd like to download the canvas and the template, it's available for you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that. I like the one who's brought up there, establish a student standard society. That's very important. I know that that was done in South Africa as well, but sustaining that was a bit of the issue, because when there was movement, the retake from the start, it actually has to happen every year. You need to make sure that once the new students come in, they're aware of it. And if that is not done and not sustained and not managed, then that slowly you can see that diluting, and that's something that needs time and effort. So agreed 100%. That's a very powerful tool to have. Thank you. Yeah. I saw from Ragnar, sorry, also from India, includes standards and curriculum. I also believe very highly that that is something that needs to be done. So
Bjorn,
yeah.
Sorry, I believe Sylvia would like to say a few words. Sylvia, if you're ready, go ahead and take the floor.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Can you see me or hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, hi. Good morning, all. So I just wanted to add that, so as many of you might have heard already in the past couple of days, I'm relatively new to the organization. I joined the organization 2 months ago, but I do have a responsibility at ISOCS to sponsor and lead the strategic program on diversity and inclusion. I want to say that yesterday's discussion today have been extremely rich and informative, not only for me, who is very new, but I think for our team in general. It's like this providing many ideas and the knowledge of initiatives going around the world to address the different levels of diversity, or I don't know why the level is the correct word, but the segment of diversity that we need have decided, that has already been decided in the strategy development process, that we need to address as a system, which is on gender, on youth, and developing economies. So I just wanted to commend very much everyone that I'm seeing here, that there is, as I expected, as a wealth of experience from around the world of people doing activities at their local level. I think that is absolutely crucial, because as Sergio said yesterday, ISO is not a building in Geneva. It's actually a combination of the strengths of ISO system is exactly what we are seeing here. It's like it's this passion commitment around the world. So I'm very looking forward to continue engaging this discussion, capturing all this knowledge, and then in a structured way go back to you and to take forward this work and integrating the strategy of the system. In terms of my my personal, it's like some comments that I would like to add. It's I see that we do have a little bit. I have the impression coming from outside, there's a little bit of it's important that we think a little bit short term, short, medium term, and a little bit long term. It's like in a structured and strategic way, because many of the activities, many of the initiatives that I'm seeing here, they seem very much focused on, and the Bede correct me if I'm wrong, but they seem focused on building the pipeline. It's like, how do we ensure that the young professionals that are studying now STEM when they become decision makers in their respective fields, the respective professions, they will be well versed in standards, know the importance of it, and then will use standards for their decision-making processes in their respective fields. On the other hand, but we also have many other, let's say, a group of people who are already in their, let's say, in their a little bit later, it's like already have 10 years, 15 years of experience. They are already influencing decisions, and I have the impression that when we look at the demographics of our technical committees, they are still not sufficiently involved there. It's like we also need to think how do we bring also that segment that is not necessarily working only on the pipeline, which is exciting. It's like but how do we attract those people who are already having 10, 15 years of experience, but are not the ones that are already towards the end of their career, very established experts, being careful with the expression as it was highlighted here. And that I haven't seen much in the discussion. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. It's like, how do we bring that intermediate segment, which I see is something a little bit not so long-term, it's more mid-term to have an impact there.
Thank you, thanks. We appreciate your feedback, and we're getting to the end of this this session as well. So I'll have to keep it a little bit close up because I need to wrap up from my side as well. But thank you very much, Silvio, for this, because it gives us a lot of impact. And there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been highlighted because there's actually so much going on. We're not even talking about disability here. There's a big section of disability that hasn't been attached yet. So there's a lot more. And I think, like I said before, this is not something that ends today. It needs to go on. And next year, we need to talk about the results that happened during the year. So this is just the start of a lot of work. And I know the team on ISO's side is putting hours and hours in trying to build that pipeline that you're talking about. But just to go back to our whiteboard, and if the ladies could assist me by scrolling down, I see that the scroll has happened, and I'm not seeing where we are. If you go scroll all the way up, please, then I can guide the people a little bit around where we are and what the feedback is. How can we close up today? So as you see, so a lot of the problems that we have seen, I'm just going to move my screen to a bigger screen if I can. No, it doesn't allow me. Okay, but that's fine. I'll just have to squint and look very well what's here. So you can see there's a lot of stuff that has been said. So we all, if I look at it from the problem part of it, we see that the lack of programs are there. There's and oh, it's jumping around. Sorry about that. Okay, so it all works together if you think about it, because there's a lack of programs, a lack of communication. There's not a lot of time, and therefore we don't attract the right people. It looks like we're disregarding the youth, but that's just because we're not talking to them, and that's actually what the main problem is, that we're not communicating it, and we're not aware. We are aware, but we're not communicating us being aware of the social issues and the cultural issues and the diversity right throughout the world. And again, connecting and all those things together. So those are definitely problems that we need to work on ourselves, and talk in the right way. So there's been very nice tips happening on the chat as well. And I encourage people to go through those chats. There's a lot of answers there as well. And then what are we doing at the moment? What is the organizations doing that? They're sensitizing the regulators. That's happening. There's seminars happening. So it is happening, but maybe it's not happening big enough if you look at the end result. And the knowledge and the sharing of knowledge going forward, I think that's very important. Again, highlighting part of the curriculum. Every NSB should fight to go to their curriculum developers and say, we need to be part of your curriculum, and not a half a page. No, there needs to be a few pages of what is about standards and why is it the importance of there. And then we come to the importance. If we don't have the right people on board and the youth on board, it eventually is going to phase out, that we're going to have a lack of those uptake of those standards. We're going to have a lack of people and the diverse voices. We're going to have we won't have the relevant stakeholders on board developing better standards, and we won't have increased professional development. Very important. All things that we maybe not taking now, like Silvio was saying, it short term we're not thinking maybe now, but in long term they've got big effects to us. So the opportunities are there. We see that there's increased participation, not enough. We know that we're working on it. We're talking about a 7%. We're far from there yet, but we're raising awareness. We're demonstrating the values. There's some focus on an initiative with greater impact. And we are understanding the economic impact and the benefits, and the new ideas are coming, but they have to be developed and sustained. So it can't stop. Like I said, it needs to go on and on. What are the actions that we need to take out of this? We need to develop programs, and it happens from in-house ISO to every NSB has to come up with those programs, work together, collaborate with each other, reach out to those targeted markets. Not only that's where diversity is very important. Are we reaching out to those disabled people that can be part of it? We must monitor those programs, because if the programs die out, what happens most of the time, it comes in and then people jump on it, and then afterwards it just dies out. Data, people, we need to get that data. We need to understand who we're talking to, who is part of us, and who do we want more on board. And data is going to help us. Data is king. Remember, that is very important. And then the interactions need to happen frequently, non-stop. We can't stop talking to those stakeholders. The moment we stop, the youth is not interested. Remember, there is so much information overload. If we don't, if we're not part of their cell phone, if we're not part of their environment, we lose them immediately. So you can't stop. So this is my take, and this is what I take out of this whiteboard. There's so much more, and I really suggest taking this tool, going to your own group, your team, putting a board up there, write it down, get them, and develop those programs, and start working with the youth how you can get it, and like saying, bring different perspectives, because I think worldwide we're looking at each other. What is the solution? Because we're talking to the same group of people, and it's a diverse group. We need inclusion of other other people, other groups of people out there. That's what we need to make sure that there's a sustainable standards development. So that is what I've taken out of it. I'm going to close up here from my side. I don't know if anyone else from my team wants to add something that I've maybe missed, because I can't see hands raised or anything like that. So please, by all means, I hope I've cleared what is in here. I see people, there's still writing happening. This board probably will go on forever. And actually, there should be something on the internet that you can just put your ideas in. But that's why we got social media. So I would definitely challenge everyone to drop emails to each other, open those doors, talk to each other about those ideas, and don't be shy to break those barriers. That's for sure.
Yeah. Bjorn, it looks like our Secretary General Sergio would like to say something. Sergio, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Very, very quickly, I just wanted to thank all of you, because you inspired me today. Really, it was a fantastic discussion. And what I find really important is that we have identified a number of very actionable points, because at the end of the day, it's about delivering on our promises. So for our next action plan for gender equality, we can take many of these very concrete suggestions and initiatives. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sergio. Really, yeah, we need this, and you see the value, and I think everybody sees the value of this. Thank you very much. Anyone else? So we can close up.
Yes, it doesn't look like there's any more comments or questions. Like I said, the problem canvas that you saw, the completed one, will be available to everyone after the session, as well as the recording on the Kujenga platform.
Perfect. I don't know if there's more time. I don't have my clock here anymore, so I've lost a little bit of the track of time, and I'm sure I'm way over. But that's the nice part of this virtual environment. I don't even see the angry faces, so good.
We are fine, Bjorn. It's 33, so
that's
right on time.
Oh, 2 minutes.
So maybe we can, yeah. wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nelia. Thank you for the team. I want to thank you, the panelists, all the participants. We had an amazing participation in this session, and I think it could only grow every time. This would never stop, to be honest, and I don't want it to stop. And I really, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but the participants, please talk to each other, open up. You've got a mail, drop each other mails, share ideas, because it's needed. That's the only way it's going to go. People like yourself, Silvio, if you got ideas, mail them to people in the block and get this engagement going. Thank you very much. And thanks to the whole team, and thanks again to all participation. We're going to close this session, and I don't know if there's a last 1 minute, because I know I'm stretching it, but 2 minutes is 2 minutes. What's that? So if anyone wants to just say something else from the panelist side, please do. No? Good. Thank you very much. And I hereby close this session, and thank you again for your participation.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good sleep.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonjour.
Bye.
Bonne nuit, Marie-Claude.
Merci.
Okay. C'est bon, Marie-Claude.
On peut y aller?
Oui, allez-y.
Ok. Bonne nuit, bonne nuit.
Bonne nuit. Bon rêve.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Merci Antoine. Merci Citraka.
Merci Antoine.
Oui, au revoir.
Au revoir.
Bye bye, Citraka.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Bjorn, so much.
No, thank you. Thanks, ladies.